Where's our boy? Here he is. As always, low romance, high corruption is your recipe. Don't overexert yourself. Okay, I understand. All that I ask is that you don't overexert yourself, okay? For my sake, at least.
はい、わかってます。雪村先輩は心配性ですね。次に会うときは差し違えてでもミキを倒さなくてはいけませんからね。
Well, make him endure it. Souma, what do you want me to do? I was at a loss. Offering him blood was an unsightly proposition, one that may only alienate him more. But he clawed at himself, twisting his limbs from the sheer agony of his painful outburst.
先輩、外に出ていてください。こんなみっともない姿なんて見られたくありませんから。
In between panted breaths, Souma timidly eked out a response, but I had to deny him. I'm sorry. It's not that I don't respect your wishes, but at the very least, allow me to keep you company, just to make sure that you'll be okay. He immediately flung his body around, turning his back to me before I wrapped my arms around him. His muscles tensed in my tender embrace. Even while suffering, Souma was attempting to show some sense of dignity, gnashing his teeth in a superhuman display of restraint. Hang in there, Souma!
ですから心配しないで。
Souma! I locked my fingers around him, crying into his back dimples in a desperate show of support. Minutes felt like days as we waited for his onset to pass, and I feared how much more of this he could take, were he to insist upon enduring it. We're running, we're trying to Kondo save our fuck it's a Miki. I can't leave you behind. I mustered a deep breath and told him, you know that I can't just leave you behind. I won't. I can't do that.
お願いします。ここで局長をこの男に殺させるわけにはいきません。
No!
言っておくが、新選組の奴らは誰一人ここから逃がすつもりはねえ。
Miki used his chin to motion suddenly in the direction of the trees standing behind us. It was the moment of truth. Either Kondo-san was strong enough to subdue all of them, or... A poorly aimed attack on a Fury was a costly mistake, considering the Furies regenerated their damaged flesh without breaking a sweat.
覚悟はできたか、小僧。まあ、できていようといまいと、俺には何の関係もねえことだがな。
Souma shook as he tried to stabilize himself. However, he was no match for the speed and fervor of Miki's maelstrom of steel. A cloud of dust kicked up around Souma, who lost his balance from the relentless flurry of stab wounds. Miki, however, seized the chance to finish off his vulnerable opponent. Sunlight gleamed on the edge of Miki's sword as he lifted his arms high into the air. No! Without realizing, I reflexively broke into a sprint. Souma's voice cracked as he shouted at me. Something pierced my chest, halting me in place. Numbness began to trickle throughout my body, and blood frothed at my mouth as my ability to breathe became more and more difficult. Suddenly, I collapsed to the ground.
てめえだけは殺すなってあのジジイに言われてたんだがな。
貴様、よくも雪浦先輩を。
Everything around me melted into a blurry mess. I wanted so badly to scream out at Souma, but it was no use, and light was fading from my eyes. In the next moment, I heard two chilling sounds. Flesh being ripped asunder by steel, like a swine under a butcher's blade, and a haunting groan. I hadn't even needed to ask whose voice it was, as much as I wanted to deny it. Souma was brutally murdered by Miki. There was no time to mourn, no time to process. Everything went silent, and then black. Where are you? Souma! Low romance, high corruption is your recipe. And now we make him endure it. Souma! He grimaced, gnashing his teeth as I called out to him in panic. To my dismay, however, his condition hadn't shown any signs of slowing, and he began clawing at his skin. I was approaching hysteria, struggling to think of a meaningful solution as he fidgeted on the ground. Are you sure you're going to be okay?
大丈夫です。静かにしていれば、そのうち収まりますから。
Somehow, Souma managed to eke out a timid attempt at assuring me, but it was unconvincing. As I feared, his pain intensified as time went on. Souma! All I could do was hold him close as his muscles tensed up in my comforting arms.
です。これぐらい耐えてみせます。
Contrary to his confident statement, he had been violently convulsing, and he gagged and heaved in between each of his strained words. He moaned in pain, and my heart felt so weak and helpless, knowing that I had done nothing. I simply glided my hand along his back, trying to comfort him as he continued to shake in my tender embrace. What should I do? Go back.
急いでトシたちのところへ戻りなさい。
そうだよ。敵に奴らがここに来ちまうぞ。
Will do. Farewell, you two. I bowed to the two of them, and just as I stepped in the direction from which I had came...
待て。お前たちに2、3尋ねたいことがある。
Can I skip this part? No, I can't.
拙者大久保剛と申すものです。何なりとお答えしましょう。
ここに兵を集め怪しげな荷物を運び込んでいたというのは本当か？
誤解させてしまったのであれば申し訳ありません。私は旗本でして近隣の治安を守るため必要な兵や武器を集めていただけです。
この者たちは
そちらの者は拙者の部下で、こちらは雇っていた昇進の者です。
No, we escaped. Alright, we've managed to squeeze through the tight drain in Senju without being noticed, and threw one foot in front of the other as fast as humanly possible. However, traversing through the mountain ridge in the dark at full speed was asking for trouble. At some point, I had realized that I'd broken away from Souma and Nomura. I glanced all around me, but they were totally out of sight. Souma? Nomura? Anyone there? As I called out to them, the only sound I heard was the whistle of wind through the trees. Where did I lose them? Anxiety began to bubble in my stomach. My first thought was to hike back from where I came. But just as I started back down the trail, I had an eerie feeling that I was being watched, and I ducked down instinctively. Who could it be? Had Souma or Nomura caught up with me? Suddenly a slew of red eyes lit up in the darkness. They were Furies clad in Imperial uniforms. As the fear began to set in, I spun around to make a run for it, but... They soundlessly appeared behind me, and I found myself encircled by a pack of ravenous Furies. As if matters couldn't have been worse.
こんなところで面白い拾い物をするとはな。
ミキ!
新選組の連中の姿が見当たらねえが、もしかして見捨てられたのか。答えたくねえか。まあいい。ジジイがお前に会いたがってるんだな。俺に付き合ってもらうぜ。
No! Before I could react, all of the Furies pounced on me. Through the fray, Miki formed a malicious grin with his lips, and the Furies hoisted me into the air. My dignity and my clothes had been torn to shreds. From then on, I never saw Souma again. Low romance, high corruption is your recipe. I'm trying very hard. Ow! Of course not. Of course not. Sometimes I get lost thinking about the past. About Kondo-san and Inoue. Someone perked up as I mentioned their names.
すみません、俺気づかなくて。何か別の話をしましょうか。どんな話がいいですか？
No, I'm the one that should apologize. Don't even worry about it. We should head back to camp soon, right? We've got an early start tomorrow morning. Souma?
いえ、何でも
You make him endure it. Souma.
お願いします。早く俺のそばから離れてください。
I felt so helpless watching him suffer in front of me. His insistence for me to leave was disheartening, though I was in an unflattering state to look at. Please, let me stay with you. If there was nothing that I could do for him, then the least I could do was hold my body close to his. Over and over his body jerked, flexing in agony from the extreme pain brought on by his thirst. He kept grinding his teeth, wearing them down as sweat dripped from his sunken face. How I longed to absorb all of his pain for him. Hang in there, Souma! I kept my arms around his heaving body. I prayed against all hope that the poison corroding him from the inside would soon stop, that Souma would suffer no longer. Take care of them. As badly as I had wanted to accompany them, I had to understand my place. Please, take care of them, Hichikata-san.
そんな、雪村先輩、どうして？
Because seeing Soma's eyes fill with dreariness made me begin to doubt my decision. Even if I were to stay with you guys, I'm not sure that I would have anything to contribute.
そんなことねえって。先輩がいなきゃ、きっと江戸で新政府軍にとっ捕まってたはずだぜ。土方副長、雪村先輩を同行させてください。もしここで別れて、先輩が新政府軍に捕まってしまったら。そうですよ。俺たちと関わりがあるって知られたら、きっとひでえ目に遭わされるはずだし。
You guys.
だそうだ。どうする？ お前が俺たちとの縁を切って静かに暮らしてっていうのなら無理は言えね
Nice way to put it, Hijikata. After all they had done for me, there was no way that I could reject their offer to sail for Ethel. Because in truth, I was unsure if I could ever live a life away from them ever again. Thank you all so much. Nothing would make me happier than joining you guys in Ethel.
そうか。
Hijikata-san curled his lips into a satisfied grin, and our next adventure was set. As I meandered towards the inn's entrance,
まさかこんなところでお前と会うことになる
the bitch has finally arrived. Kazuma! I became catatonic, and as I attempted to run, I was frozen to the spot, paralyzed with fear.
逃がさぬぞ
Kazuma reached his hand to grab a hold of me. No! Let me go!
仙台藩に見捨てられ会津ももはや風前の灯火となった旧幕府の残党どもが敗れるのはもはや必定だ純血の
What?
純血の女を似たるお前が連中にこれ以上付き合う義理はあるまい共に来てもらう
What? No! I tried to kick and sweat at Kazuma, but it was no use as he dragged me away. I'm so sorry, Souma. I wanted so badly to follow after him. But my fate was cast for me, and I never saw the shores of Ethel, nor Souma's smile ever again. Souma! Low romance and high corruption is your recipe. When the time is right. I mean, when the time is right, it'll feel a lot better for the two of us, right?
そうですよね。無理する必要はないですよね。
Oh, hey, look, Souma, snow's beginning to fall.
本当だ。道理で冷えると思ったら。
Say, I'll pour some hot tea. We can bundle up together, okay?
はい。よろしくお願いします。
It hurts. Ah! Without blood or medicine to offer him, I could only bide my time until the pain had subsided. He writhed uncontrollably, gasping for air. Souma! Souma flipped over, facing his back to me as his body flailed in response to his torturous side effects.
ですあの時の野村の苦しみに比べば
He convulsed throughout the night, and I wiped the saliva frothing at his mouth so he wouldn't choke. His symptoms had finally calmed down around dawn, but the damage hadn't been done. I had to run a decision by Souma, so I said nothing. Although my voice had been nagging me to press him for us to go after Hijikata-san, I stayed silent. It wasn't my place to urge him, nor did we have any idea whether or not Hijikata-san had even lived.
俺土方さんのところへ行きます雪村先輩は
It was as if a switch had been flipped. An intense glow shined in his amber eyes, and I was certain it meant he'd found his purpose. Of course, I'll go with you. We should take this with us. Let it fly as a symbol to our fellow soldiers, the Makoto flag.
はいありがとうございます
Ah, the passing of the torch scene. No! With the messenger's directions, we ran towards the direction of Penten Fortress, which stood under a plume of fiery smoke that blackened the sky.
あれは
A silhouette emerged in a murky haze, and Souma stopped dead in his tracks to squint. The sunlight obscured the silhouette even further, making it tough for us to discern who it was. In his right hand, however, was a sword, stained with a sticky coat of fresh blood. As the smoke cleared, we could make out the red splotches covering the figure from head to toe. Had Hijikata-san emerged safely? Or was it?
遅かったじゃねえか。
The voice's haunting tenor made my hair stand. All of a sudden, it made sense as to why the silhouette was sodden with gruesome remains.
ミキ、あんた蝦夷地に来ていたのか。
新選組の奴らの首を新政府軍の奴らに取らせてやるわけにはいかねえからな。近藤や原田、長倉や斎藤は仕留め損なったが、兄貴を殺せと命じた土方の首だけは取れたんだ。
God damn, Albert.
思い残すことはね。
My blood boiled at the mere thoughts of Miki's revelation, and I screamed at him. What did you say?
もしかしてお前ら気づいてねえのか。俺の足元に倒れてるのが誰かよく見てみろよ。
A cloud of dust kicked up, and there, lying in a pool of blood at Miki's feet, was Hijikata-san, recognized by his black coat with gold trimmings and his family crest emblazoned.
土方さん
Souma screamed with all of his might, but Hijikata-san didn't budge. I gasped, fearing the worst. Veins began to bulge from the top of Souma's wide forehead as he shot a hateful glare in Miki's direction. Then Souma unleashed the brunt of his misery.
よくも土方さんをあんただけは絶対に許さない
A terrifying aura radiated from Souma's enraged body, and he lifted his arm, pointing the tip of his blade at Miki.
許さなきゃどうだってんだ。甲府で俺に手も足も出なかったことを忘れちまったわけじゃねえよな。
This time, though, Souma was unafraid. His glare rivaled Miki's, and the two were embroiled in a battle of wills, each warrior ready to... I keep pressing... This button is very sensitive now. Or embroiled in a wills of battle, each warrior ready to avenge the memory of the men whom they lost. Souma!
先輩下がっていてください
But...
お願いしますこの男を見逃すわけにはいかない
This was the tipping point, the culmination of Souma overcoming his deepest anxieties. Miki, however, took his strength from a similar kind of emotional unrest, but had proven himself as a capable warrior in the last duel. Really, all of this is new text by the game standards. I stepped back in trepidation.
どうせなら先に五稜郭に戻ってろとでも言ってやった方が良かったんじゃないのかな。いくらなんでも蝦夷地まで一緒に来た仲間が目の前で死ぬ様を見せるってのは酷だ。
ごたくはいいからさっさとかかってこい来ないならこっちから行くぞ
Souma kicked to the ground, raising his arm in the air to jab Miki with his sword. Nope. Technique gave way to rage in Souma's movements.
何
This seemingly caught Miki off guard as he shifted his footing at the last minute. Souma had apparently vanished. Then he appeared, throwing an endless stream of slashes towards Miki, who avoided them all.
今のは少し驚いたぜ。この1年寝てたわけじゃないらしいな。だが今ので分かった。お前は所詮俺の敵じゃねえ。
黙れ
Souma cocked his arm back, trying to throw all of his weight into a calculated strike towards Miki, but he was too slow, and Miki used superhuman speed to dodge the strike, causing Souma to hesitate. Then,
お前ごときの首を取っても何の自慢にもならねえな。お前も一応新選組大使ではあるから。
in the span of a second, Miki smirked and flipped his blade to carve through Souma's abdomen. No! I cried out in desperation, watching blood splatter into the air like a geyser. I winced hearing Miki's blade crack through Souma's ribcage, through the surge of blood. Blood frothed from his lips, sputtering forth like a clogged aqueduct, ready to burst. When the dust had cleared, Miki swatted his blade towards the ground, and Souma's body slammed to the floor with a dull thud. Souma! Souma! I sprinted over to his body, grabbing a fistful of cloth with my hands as I called his name. But I could only see the glassy whites of his eyes, and no breath came from those supple lips. Souma was gone. Never again could I save the sound of his sweet voice or feel the gentle touch of his embrace. Emptiness swirled inside of me. My body went numb, and every other sensation was replaced by inexorable rage. Souma's hand was kept clasped tightly inside of mine as I growled a curse at Miki. I will never forgive you! I'll avenge him! I jumped to my feet and unsheathed my kodachi. Whoops. In that moment, Miki sneered at me with a cold gaze. This A button is really not doing it. It's very sensitive. Before I had even had a chance to move, I felt a sharp, icy piece of steel burrow into my chest.
俺の目当ては土方の首だった。こいつが切りかかってこなきゃ殺す気はなかったが、地獄への道連れが今さらもう一人増えたところでどうってことはねえな。ま、首二つもありゃ恨みを果たした上に昇進間違いなしだぜ。
Miki took pleasure in forcing the blade deeper into my chest cavity, and I struggled to draw breath due to the immense pain.
目を閉じてろ。すぐにあいつのところへ送ってやるよ。
The blade twisted inside of me, and soon all of the strength in my limbs began to give out. I failed him. I failed everyone. I can't let you take either Hijikata-san or Souma. My ramblings fell upon deaf ears, and Miki simply pressed his sword deeper into me. I focused all of my strength on my right hand. Once I was in range, I drove my kodachi into his heart. With each blink, my vision began to blur, and I had trouble making out any details. But fear had left me. I had nothing else to lose. I shut my eyes, trying to conjure an image of Souma before it faded with everything else. If we could meet in the afterlife, what would I say? I'm sorry. Souma. Okay, I didn't expect any of that. Holy shit. Chizuru killed Miki. Chizuru killed someone. She killed someone in the story. What the? It was a game over, but a bad ending, but... Right, I didn't expect that. Alright, let's move it on. Let's go to the unrequited love. Low romance and low corruption is your recipe. And we tell him when the time is right. Right, it's over. Alright, it's given blood. Nice. Later that evening, I stood apprehensively in front of Souma's door. Souma, is it okay if I come in? I entered to find Souma wandering in circles around his room, and neither of us spoke. I felt as though saying the wrong thing would put our feelings at odds, so I hesitated from letting myself say anything too rash. But eventually Souma chose to break the silence.
Yukimura-senpai.
Souma gazed longingly into my eyes.
俺は明日、榎本総裁たちと一緒に同行します。新選組局長として。
I almost wished that he wouldn't have said so, as if ignoring the thought stopped it from being real. But the promise he made to Hichikata-san took precedence over everything else, and I couldn't live with myself if I interfered with that. So I told myself to keep my heart from shattering.
先輩は生き延びてください。生き延びて幸せになってください。
His words struck me like an icy dagger to the chest, and I felt dizzy taking them in. Happiness without Souma made no sense to me, as I'd built a hollow fantasy of our future together, with our relationship in mind. His earnestness is one of my favorite things about him, but tonight, it betrayed me. Telling him so would only make this hurt more, so I bit my tongue and went along with it. Sokka. Thank you for your friendship throughout all these years, Souma. I will never forget you. As the words left my mouth, Souma stopped himself from choking up and cleared his throat.
礼を言うのは俺の方です。もしあなたがいなければ、俺はこうしてここに立っていなかったかもしれませんから。今まで本当にありがとうございました。
Even now, he wooed my heart with his delicate charm. If things had unfolded differently, then perhaps we could have basked underneath the starlight. But life was pulling us in separate directions, and I had to accept this to give myself a chance. Okay, good luck then.
はい。おやすみなさい。
His eyes were full of sorrow, tender as the night as they lingered upon me for another moment. Then I saw the door shut behind me. The Boshin War had begun with the Battle of Toba Fushimi and ended with the bitter surrender of the government of Hakodate to the Empire of Japan. From what I'd later been told, following the surrender, Souma had been given a sentence and transferred to a remote island called Hachijojima. I had already accepted this, but there was a chance neither of us would ever speak together again. His absence left a bigger hole in my heart than I could have ever imagined. It felt futile to dwell on what could have been, but how could I? My love burned too brightly not to feel scorned by the regret in what could have been. Where did I go wrong? I tore myself apart asking, and I spent my days inhabiting an idle fantasy, letting life pass me by without thinking much of it.